channel. My name is Bryce, and today we are reacting to another video by the Paint Explainer called Every Level of Hell Explained in 12 Minutes, Dante's Inferno. It looks like a pretty good video, should be pretty exciting. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Please like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much.
Limbo. The first level isn't really considerable
Yes, I
hell.
hear about
It's
this
basically
limbo
Earth,
being
but you
just, like,
can't die,
stuck.
with the only punishment being the knowledge that the current state they're in will be
Explaining
the
here
same
what I
for
said,
eternity.
yeah.
Dante himself defined it as the place where instead of screaming, there is sighing. It's where unbaptized babies go, and
It's
where
like
righteous people
nothingness,
who were
isn't it?
born
It's
before
just like
Christ reside, such as Plato and
white,
Socrates.
like-
Some people actually went
like
from the limbo
at
level to
nothing.
heaven when Jesus died on the cross, since he came down to the limbo and brought them with him. However, they're mostly Old Testament figures like Adam, Abel, Noah, Moses, etc. Julius Caesar is also in the limbo, since Dante was a big fan of ancient Rome, even though he couldn't put him into heaven because he was born before Christ. Minos.
I didn't know that.
Before the first actual level of hell, there is Minos, which is a figure from ancient Greek mythology that judges where people need to go in the underworld based on their actions. Whenever someone comes into contact with him, they can't help but tell the truth. Level 2. Lust. This is where people who've committed sexual sins go, and it's the most used temptation by the devils to bring people into hell. Here we can find great winds, strong like a hurricane, with people who get pushed back and forth constantly without the opportunity of getting some rest. In Dante's Divine Comedy, there is a principle called contrapasso, which means that the punishments of souls need to be done by a process either resembling or contrasting with the sin itself. For this exact reason, people who lived blown about by the passions of love now have to be blown about by actual winds. Some famous figures are found in this layer, such as Dido, Paris, and Cleopatra, who isn't in hell just because she was lustful, but also because she was an enemy of Rome. Level 3. Gluttony. In Level 3, there is a constant pouring of a mixture of rain, sleet, snow, and hail, with people constantly being pelted with ice. It's here that we can also find Cerberus, the three-headed dog from Greek mythology, who runs around and shreds people to pieces. But since they can't die, they either just regenerate and stay in a loop of suffering for eternity, or just lay there forever. This punishment is because, according to the principle of contrapasso, those who always ate are now being eaten. Most of the people here are laying down and playing dead so Cerberus doesn't get to them. And when it tried to go for Dante, Virgil, who is his guide, threw dirt in its three mouths, distracting it. It's at this level that we learn that on Judgment Day, everyone's soul will be reunited with their body and be in a state of perfection. But while perfection sounds good in heaven, in hell, it means perfect suffering. Level 4. Greed. When they first enter Level 4, they see a sea of people constantly running into each other like waves and beating each other with big money bags. In between them, Dante sees some bald people who were commonly friars, so he asks Virgil if they're members of the church. Virgil says that half of them are indeed members of the church, and the other half are just people who fought to hoard wealth on earth. They are now forced to literally fight for nothing, just as they fought for useless earthly wealth. We also can't find recognizable famous figures here, because their faces have been so disfigured from hundreds of years of fighting that they're unrecognizable. Level 5. Wrath. This one isn't to be confused with violence, as it's just for people who were mean and angry all the time. There is a sea of mud with people constantly trying to push each other down to come out on top, and there are bubbles coming up from the mud, which are actually coming from people underneath screaming and crying. The sullen can also be found in this level, and they lie beneath the sea, eternally gurgling their lamentations. This level has the river Styx, which is also filled with people, and Dante and Virgil take Phlegis's boat, who is a Greek mythology character that acts as the boatman that takes souls from the fifth layer to the lower circles of hell. While they're getting nearer to their destination, Dante sees a red light, which is the city of Dis. The city of Dis encompasses the sixth through the ninth circles of hell, and it's characterized by its fortified walls and fiery landscape. So, from now on, every level is going to be in the city of Dis. When they get to the gates, some fallen angels appear and tell Dante that he isn't dead yet, and he isn't supposed to go there, so they lock the gates even though Virgil tried to explain that they're on a mission from God. Furthermore, the three Furies come out from the pillars of the gate, covered in blood and snakes, and begin yelling for Medusa, forcing Dante and Virgil to cover their eyes to not become stones and stay there forever. As things are getting bad, an actual heavenly angel comes down from heaven with a huge roar and starts walking across the river Styx. As he's walking, the sea of souls gets pushed to the sides to make room for it. The angel then arrives at the gates, touches them, and they instantly open, revealing the fallen angels hiding cowardly behind them. The angel warns them that Dante and Virgil are really on a mission from God, and that if they were to hinder their journey, they would suffer greatly. Level 6. Heresy. This is the first layer where people are actively sinning against someone else. So from here on, they get active torture and suffering instead of just misery. As they reach level 6, where the heretics reside, they see tombs cut out of rock laid along each other, where people are laying down, constantly being stoked with flames. There are fallen angel guards who make sure everybody's lying down and properly suffering. We can also find King Frederick II here, since he was in the opposite faction of Dante's when there was a war between the Pope and the Emperor. Level 7, Violence. The 7th level is divided into 3 parts. The outer ring for violence against others, the middle ring for violence against themselves, and the inner ring for violence against God. In the first part, the outer ring, we find the river Phlegethon, made of boiling blood, where people are forced to burn for eternity by the centaurs, who guard it and make sure no one gets out. Alexander the Great is here, since he killed a lot of people, and we learn that the river gets deeper the closer the souls are to the middle, with some people being completely buried, and some being able to take their heads out and breathe. In the second part, the middle ring, there's a dark forest filled with dead trees and harpies, which are human-bird amalgamations, flying back and forth. Dante hears lots of screaming, but he can't see anybody, so Virgil tells him to pull off a branch from a tree. When he does so, blood comes out of the tree and it starts screaming. That's because the trees are actually people who committed unalivement. And since they wanted to get rid of their bodies, now they have to spend eternity in something that is not their body. These tree people grow fruits, which are part of their bodies that get eaten by the harpies, causing them great pain. When Judgment Day comes, these trees will have their lifeless bodies hanging from them, making them remember what they have done forever. In the third part, the inner ring, there's a sand pit full of naked people who are screaming the most out of every level yet. That's because there are pieces of fire falling down on the sand, making it scorching hot. Also, if one of the souls gets tired of walking on boiling sand for eternity and it lays down, they would have to stay in that position for 100 years, exposing more of their bodies to the burns. In this layer, we can find Caponius, who's a giant that's laying there and laughing while saying it isn't that bad. He's doing this because he doesn't want to let the Roman god Jove, who killed him, know that he's suffering. We can also see people who stare at purses all the time, and they're the usurers, those who gave out loans with high interest rates, because they defy God's law that each effort gives a result, since they made no efforts and got lots of results. Level 8, Fraud. Level 8 is divided into 10 trenches called Bolgias, where people who made different kinds of frauds are. The first Bolgia is for those who betrayed love. For example, we can find a guy who sold his sister to a lustful man. They are forced to run from one end of the trench to the other, as devils whip them if they go too slow. The second Bolgia is for the deceptive speakers, those who lied to get what they wanted, and it consists of a giant pitfall of poop. The idea is that those who behest now are full of BS, always fighting and trying to push each other down. In the third Bolgia, we can find the simoniacs, those who sold sacred goods, like holy sacraments or passes to get one's familiars out of purgatory for cash. Dante put them in here because, back then, it was a huge problem in the church, with leaders selling pardons. The ground and bottom of the Bolgia are on fire, and there are random hot coals that shoot up with flames. The only way to avoid them is to get into holes in the ground, but since they only cover the top part of the body, the feet stay up and get burnt. Here we can find Pope Nicholas III, who Dante thought started the trend of getting paid for pardons. The Pope says to Dante that whenever the next Pope comes to take his place, he needs to dig deeper underground to leave room for the successor. The fourth Bolgia is for sorcerers and seers, basically witches, and the only punishment they have is that their heads are twisted backwards, so they have to walk backwards for the rest of eternity. In the fifth Bolgia, the Barators are found, which are people who exchange money for political favors and corruption. They are in a pot of boiling tar, with devils keeping them in with rods. The sixth Bolgia, for the hypocrites, is composed of people with beautiful robes from the outside, but ugly on the inside, and really, really heavy. The hypocrites are forced to walk with them on for eternity, and there's also a man crucified in the middle of the Bolgia, Caiaphas, the high priest who advised the Pharisees to crucify Jesus. The other robed hypocrites have to step on him with their heavy robes. The seventh Bolgia is for thieves, and there are giant lizard snake things that have stingers that turn people into ash. People run with some sort of snake handcuffs behind their back, being stung into ash and regenerating in an eternal loop. In the eighth Bolgia, we can find evil leaders and counselors, and we can see a long area with little fires that look like fireflies, while in actuality, there are souls underneath them who burn all the time. Since everyone who led others to death with treachery and leadership is here, we can find Ulysses too, since back then, they thought that the world had a limit, and they thought that Ulysses went onto the sea with his crew until the end of the world, where they fell off and died. In the 9th Bolgia, we can find the Sowers of Discord, and there's a sea of carnage that looks like it's from every war in history, with every imaginable part of the body ripped to shreds. It's for people who purposefully caused trouble, and there are demons picking people up, ripping them to shreds, and throwing them into that sea where they lay alive forever, feeling the other body parts being thrown onto them. For some reason, Dante also put Prophet Muhammad from Islam here too. In the 10th and last Bolgia, we can find the liars and falsifiers in a pitch-black scenario. Dante had to cover his ears from the shrieking that he heard, and it's because there's a constant pestilence of illnesses far beyond the ones on Earth, such as people covered in giant scabs that look like fish scales that itch all over their body that once scratched away bleed and grow back. Level 9. Treason. The 9th level, the deepest one, is a frozen lake divided into 4 regions based on who the souls betrayed: kindred and family, country, guests and friends, and God. The heads of the sinners pop out from the frozen lake, and they stay frozen from the neck down forever, with their own tears becoming frozen. The center of this lake is the center of hell itself. Dante encounters Friar Alberigo, who he knew personally and was still alive. So when he asked him how it's possible that he's there while alive, Alberigo told him that if someone commits a really bad sin, his soul goes straight into hell in the 9th level, and the body gets possessed by a demon, which is how demon possessions happen. Alberigo himself invited a friend over and murdered him, thus betraying his trust. As they go towards the center, Dante feels a wind, and once he gets close enough, Virgil explains that it's the wind caused by Lucifer's wings. Lucifer is described as massive, with 3 faces, the one on the right being a dark blackish color, the one in the middle being deep blood red, and the one on the left being a bright burning yellow. From each of these faces, blood and tears pour, running down his body and creating a sort of river. There are only 4 people in this bottom pit of hell. The first is Lucifer, and then there's the 2 on either side of the heads, which are Brutus and Cassius, the 2 members of the Senate who conspired against Caesar. They hang on the left and right sides of Lucifer's heads with their top half hanging out, and they're constantly chewed, with Lucifer reaching up with claws and scratching them for eternity. In the middle head of Lucifer is the most punished man ever, like Judas Iscariot, the apostle who betrayed Jesus, facing towards the throat of Lucifer. Dante says he can see his spine and bones as all of his skin has been stripped away. Lucifer got there, at the center of the earth, because when he was cast out of heaven, the lands moved to not touch him, and he got stuck there, shooting a hole through earth. If you want to discuss this video or suggest an idea for the next one, join my Discord. Link in the description.
But that was a good video. There were a lot of levels of hell that I didn't know about. I thought there were only like 7 or something like that, or 8. But like I didn't know like there were more than that. Or I thought it was like, you know, maybe like 5 or something like this. I don't know. That's just what I thought before. Maybe some of you knew that there weren't 5 or that there were more, but that's just what I thought. And it's very interesting seeing the different, you know, levels and what the different punishments are and the different people that reside there. And definitely it's pretty scary to think about. But anyways, yeah, it was a good video. The Paint Explainer video is always good. It was a great channel. I really enjoyed reacting to the video. Thank you for joining me today and reacting to it. Please like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much. Have a good day.